And I've done a similar thing where I've used the Reiki symbols to clear space.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense if they're a filter, because then that would completely make sense of why they actually work. It actually is kind of consistent with the kinds of things that I actually say in hands-on chaos magic, even if I'm not right. It seems to, in practice, help to understand them as intelligent filters.
Yeah. I'd probably give the symbols more importance than they deserve in a way. I read that Usui's group, the one he set up, they didn't put much importance on the symbols. And I found that a bit strange because from a magical perspective, at least the symbol is the energy. But they had this attitude that they were to be dispensed with as soon as possible. In this book I was reading about the original Usui Reiki.
Yeah, and I might tend to agree with that from my own practice. Not because I think that the symbols are bad. They're not. I think they were actually intended as guideposts. Literally, like, when you get to the point that you've internalized what the symbol, the vibration is of the symbol, you should not need it anymore, because you've internalized how to do that level of healing, which is a better level of mastery than just relying on the symbol to act as the filter. You now understand how to be the filter yourself.
Okay.
It's like the difference between someone who does the form in a martial art all the time and someone who's done the form for many years and has to improvise on the fly with their martial arts to defend themselves. That's kind of the difference. There's a different level of mastery. One is rote memorization. The other can improvise because they understand. They understand what the form means, and they can then apply it in new ways because they have an understanding, a synthesis of how to work with that understanding of how they move and stuff. A similar kind of mentality, I think, that goes into the Reiki symbols, that once you really understand the symbol, you can apply it in different ways that maybe are not exactly the vibration that the symbol was, but is more helpful for your client.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, because they're quite different vibrations, aren't they? The four symbols. I mean, you've got the master symbol and the other three before it, and they're all very different, quite different vibrations. You can feel the difference in them as a practitioner.
Yeah, I was actually taught by a Reiki practitioner who was also a witch.
Yes.
And the funny thing was, when I got attuned to the highest degree, I've got like 3 other symbols that she saw drawn in front of me as well, because the various guides that work with me came in and made sure I had these other symbols, which did slightly different things from the master symbol. Because that is, and they are, again, they weren't given to me by the spirit guides that were there in the room to be the end all. They're actually given to me to say, keep going. This isn't a path that ends. Reiki, as most magical paths and spiritual paths, it doesn't end when you become a Reiki master. It's a system of mastery. You keep going. There's different aspects. And this kind of filtration idea actually kind of lends credence to why there's so many different kinds of Reiki. And I wish I could write a whole book on just this.
Maybe you will.
Maybe I will. I have so little time, but to write so many books. But I mean, in a way, it means credit and lends credibility to this. And Reiki itself is not. Usui simplified things. It actually probably has Tantric Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism roots. There's clearly Shinto influences on dealing with the spirit guides in Reiki, and the way that spirit guides help is clearly seems to be a Shinto influence.
And the symbols too, I think they're Shinto, aren't they?
There is certainly some people who would make that case. I'm not sure. So, I mean, there's the symbols to us, they're much more esoteric than maybe to a Japanese person. Don't know what level of Reiki you've gotten to yet.
For me,
that you've been initiated to. But
okay. Well, it's I had an astral initiation from a chap in England called Master Lee some years ago, which I doubted at the time. But it's the full initiation, and subsequent work has led me to be convinced that I did experience an initiation from this man. So,
very, very cool.
you know, so I mean, I like things to be ratified physically as well. However, he sent me all the symbols, and they're not exactly traditional, all of them either. Although he says, you know, you're still attuned to the traditional ones. I found it to be, well, life changing, really. So you were saying you don't know what level I've been up to. Well, I have the master symbol and the Daikomyo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with what he sent me anyway, and I have seen the traditional ones. I mean, everything's on the internet now, isn't it? In many
It is.
ways. You know?
It is in many ways, although I definitely want to talk about that for a second. Not that I'm against that. But when you actually get taught how to pass initiations in Reiki and how to actually do them, there's a tremendous amount of similarities, and this is on the internet too, in some places. There's a tremendous amount of similarities between the Reiki and some of the advanced Qigong techniques, and the Reiki and some of the root chakra techniques. So you can see this kind of connecting to universal energy thread that is in multiple traditions in the East. And in fact, it's not just the East. Just in the West, we kind of use the Kabbalah in Western magic to do similar things as we ascend up the tree of life.
Yeah.
Which is a set of symbols again. At the point at which you're at Kether, you are pulling what is undetermined God energy, as it were. If you can pull that vibration, which is very difficult, obviously, because neither this nor that. But so even Reiki is kind of a, it's kind of a combination of systems. It's a beautiful simplification of a lot of different systems into what's a much easier way to connect to that energy. But it still has roots in these different traditions. I mean, I think at the highest level, when you're doing the master work and beyond in some cases, the healing takes place from a realization that there is no difference between me and the person I'm healing. Yeah. Well, that's a very Buddhist, that is exceptionally a Buddhist way of thinking, that the healing takes place. I'm not healing you. That's impossible, right? That I'm healing myself because there is no separation between me and you. That's an extremely Buddhist way to think. And in methods, like even in the traditional Usui symbols, seem like some of the methods were influenced by Taoist Qigong, or at least Buddhist Tantric Qigong work.
You know a bit about Qigong, don't you?
Yeah, I very much enjoy Qigong and Tai Chi. Which is just a different system of moving energy around, except moving your own energy around. For a long time, I thought the two, and I kind of still believe this, the two are complementary. Whereas like Reiki, you're going out and you're tapping universal energy. The Qigong all is working with your own energy back and forth. So you're opening up your own energy channels.
Hmm.
Then when you go to do the Reiki, you can actually pull much more Reiki through because you've opened up your energy channels.
Wow. You've taken strands from lots of different spiritual disciplines, and it's eclectic. It means you can speak to lots of people, really.
Yeah, I've been around the block a little, so.
So you were homeless for a while, and this reminds me of a book I read by this psychic in England. Now he decided to become homeless, or something happened, and he became homeless. But he was an amazing psychic as well, and you probably heard of an author called Colin Wilson who had a famous book called The Occult, and he did the foreword for his book, and it was amazing. He had this isn't. I'm not saying you are the same as him, but he had an experience where he missed that existence when he came out of it, and he found a sort of security in it. And he never went back to it, but it was interesting that it was like an initiation for him. And I think that's the best way to put it. And you said something similar about your own experience.
I would definitely, in retrospect, I didn't at the time. In retrospect now, and hindsight's 2020, of course, would definitely say that that was a type of shamanic initiation where sometimes life throws something at you that you cannot deal with what you were doing before. And you are given a choice, as I was. And I don't know that I would really want to go back to being homeless, but I certainly had a choice. I had a choice. I could choose to just give up and die, or I could choose to live. Either way had consequences. And that may seem a little stark, but it's easy for people to die. It's hard for them to live. I mean, to really live is hard. Most people nowadays, at least in the States, I don't know how it is in Australia, it's much easier to, come home from work, turn the television on, and tune out.
Yes, it is the same.
And even our work lives now are increasingly robotic. You do the same things over and over and over. I mean, over and over and over and over. And it's easy to get kind of lulled into that, but that's not really living. In a way, it's you're alive, yes, you're surviving, but it's not living. Um, and I had to realize that, make a choice to live, to try to live. Not that, I'm perfect, not that my life is perfect, but I certainly strive to make it better. And I think that true striving is what makes a magician more than anything else. I think that initiation was about that. It was about me having to choose life over just surviving, because I wasn't going to just survive. I
But you
had
did.
to.
But you did survive, of course. And yeah, you didn't just want to survive. You had to do something more
Right, I
than
had to do
survive.
stuff to start understanding to live. Now, I mean, like I said, I had a rough childhood. There was a lot of things that I needed to fix about myself. I will not lie. Maybe I fixed a lot of them. I'm not saying I've fixed all of them, but the choice to start divorcing yourself from the conditions that brought you to where you are, the choice to start taking matters into your own hands and decide that you want to live, is really the difference between what would be a magician and everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that may sound very simple to many people who are listening, but even if they made a choice to live for 5 minutes a day, where they were doing something they wanted to, not just turning the television on, not just doing what other people expected them to do, I think they would start to really understand how difficult it is to actually live. to actually make changes in your life.
Yes, it's certainly not for the chosen few, the path. It's for everyone, but the work is hard. The work of changing oneself.
Yeah, indeed.
I'd like to ask you where Andrieh Vitimus is going in the next 6 months with his career.
That's a good question. I mean, clearly, being an occult author does not necessarily have enough money to sustain me. So I have a day job. I am working on a couple books, one of which is a fiction book, one of which is a book that I tentatively am going to title like First Aid for the Wounded Soul,
Mm-hmm.
which deals with more practical as opposed to more practical methods to help people basically heal themselves in a very practical, tangible way. I hope to be able to move within 6 months, actually. I'm working on that.
Where will you move?
No, I like New Orleans, and I'd really like to go down there because there's such a strong voodoo current. But I have a lot of people to talk to and ask them.
What, even after all the changes with the Katrina, is it still very much a voodoo capital?
It's getting better there. It's getting a little better.
I've never been, but I'd like to go. I've never been there. It would be good.
Well, Katrina did destroy a good portion of the city, and that's a very sad story. But I've been down there a couple times since Katrina, and it's getting livable now. It was livable, but it's getting livable again. Jobs are starting to come back slowly. And it's still a magical city in a lot of ways.
That's good to hear, because I've talked to other people who've been there and they've been coming from a material angle, and they've seen the devastation and the changes in the black population and the increase maybe in the white population, and they see disenfranchised people and all that sort of thing. And I don't look away from that. I listen to all that stuff because it's all part of the one thing. But it's good to hear a magical, spiritual perspective on the changes as well from you.
I think there's a lot of people who are more magical who would like to see that city once again be a magical city. And they're working very hard to make that happen. I mean, it was probably in the States the single most magical city in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, energy-wise, current-wise, just in a lot of ways. Culture-wise, I mean, you could go down this. How many cities can you go down the street and, walk into a random bar and have absinthe? I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere, and at least not in the United States. I think that was partially due to the fact that to really live, that city is so close to death all the time, being underneath sea level, that everyone really lives. Or they try to, because not everyone, but there's more of that because the realization is that they're under sea level. So at any moment, those levees break, and I think the safety aspects of a lot of our society make you think there's always going to be tomorrow, but you don't know that. There might not be a tomorrow.
So is it a city that lives very aware of its vulnerability?
New Orleans has a very high murder rate, a high crime rate. New Orleans had, one hurricane could wipe it out. That's how it was before. Yeah, the crime rate is high, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, all the violence aspects, the negative aspects. I mean, you see people take pride when they give you a meal. You know, like when you go out and hang out, it's just everyone's really hanging out and partying, and there's an honesty there. They're not worried about work at that point. And I think the reason is because they understand that there might not be a tomorrow, which is the truth for all of us. But it's in your face there that you might not have a tomorrow to enjoy that drink. There's only the moment right now.
So do you see yourself maybe moving there on a long-term basis?
I'd like to be there for a few years. I'm always inspired.
Yeah.
I'm always inspired when I go down there. I have some other options that I'm looking at too. Moving away from Ohio, basically where I live now. And we'll see what happens. But it's going to be fun either way, so that's all one can ask for sometimes. Is it getting better or is it fun? If the answer is yes, you're probably doing something right.
Well, I'd like to talk to you again in the future and see where you're at then. Hopefully we can have another chat.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I've really enjoyed this one, and I have to take this opportunity again to tell the listeners what a really good book you've written, and I encourage them to go out and get it. I mean, like Mr. Duquette would say, even if you don't read it, just get it and have it in your collection. No, that's not
he
true.
does say that about his books, a lot. Buy my book. Just put it on the shelf. But
no, you should actually read your book.
But really, I'm humbled by the people who go out and spend money for my book, and I'm very much thank you all for doing that. I mean, you opened the door for me to write another book by going out and getting it. And it's not a small book. It's 400 pages. And there's not many pictures. Don't let that scare you, though, because it's broken into real small chapters. But my real hope there with that book is that people will take the exercises, kind of make them their own, and get results. See, spirituality shouldn't be something that you just do and your life isn't getting better. It should be something that you can believe in, not just out of faith, not entirely out of faith, but something that you can believe in and see and feel your life getting better in every way. Maybe not overnight. No one can promise that, but certainly over time it should get better, as you define it, not anyone else.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Andrieh, for your time and sharing your experience, for the writing such an original book, glossolalia and those techniques. I haven't really seen those talked about in many places. Glamouri, and it's wonderful to see that brought out for people to look at again and work with. So well done.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries. And if you ever come to Australia, let me know before you get here.
There's a few people who would like me to come to Australia. I always tell them the same exact thing. Get me the plane ticket and put me up, and I'll be happy to come to wherever in the world people want me to come.
Well, let's see what we can do.
Very good, very good. I actually love traveling, so very cool. Thanks again for having me.
No worries. Thank you very much for being involved. I really appreciate it. And best of luck with everything you do.
Well, thank you. Okay. Talk to you later.
Thanks, buddy. Right. Bye for now.